The XFL has a couple things the NFL is going to steal, right?
You would think. As third time might genuinely be the charm, because I think the product was exceptional this weekend.
Oh, for the love of God. Are you going to do this all the time?
3 of the 4 games were instant classics. And I preferred it over the NBA All-Star game.
It's because you guzzled down like 7 beers before the first game.
Yeah.
Wasn't a beer snake confiscated at one of the games, and then
and
they threw lemons?
And then you know what happened? They started throwing lemons.
Where'd they get those?
Where
is
did
an
they get the
excellent question.
lemons? Maybe they gave a drink, like you know how there's certain beers that come with citrus. They had full lemons, and they were prepared for someone to confiscate the beer snake.
That's a bad marketing.
I don't understand how you can't get a bottle of water without a cap now. Like at games where like they pour bottles of water in cups so you can't throw a bottle, but they're just handing out full lemons to people.
That atmosphere in that soccer stadium, Audi Field in D.C., the last game, I think, of XFL 2.0 had the beer snake confiscated, and it was just a party atmosphere. You have this wall of supporters because it's the DC United supporters section, and they're right on top of the end zone, and it provides this banana atmosphere. So they start doing what they pick up right where they left off 3 years prior. They start forming the beer snake, and this was one of the things that it's a proud thing of their history. The head coach said, if we win, I'm going to put the top beer on that beer snake. Oliver Luck 3 years ago was joining in on the beer snake. Inexplicably, they take the beer snake away, and these DC Defender fans lose their mind. They start chanting that they want their snake, free the snake. They start throwing lemons on the field, and plays just continuing to go on. These people are worked up into a ravenous lather, and 2 plays later, the Seattle Sea Dragons throw a pick 6 right into that end zone, and people go nuts. Someone finally... Do you have the commentators saying, give them back their beer snake? Everyone's on board for this party. They finally got their beer snake back. It was great television.
Please stop doing what you're doing.
The Rock needs to do better, Dan. The Rock can't be overseeing, an organization where they're taking away beer snakes.
I think he said something. I genuinely think The Rock went to every single one of the game, and three of the four games were also in Texas. But he went to all 4 of the games, and I'm telling you, the product. Did you watch any over the weekend?
A little much. I watch very little, and what I told you about the USFL, because there was access in the USFL, which is stater than this. What you're talking about, what the XFL is trying to do, to try and be more fun and more innovative, is they are trying to create some things that will surprise you, put against the conservative NFL. As the NFL changes its rule on what's that play called, the tush push that the Eagles have, where they just Jalen Hurts goes back there and
it's unstoppable.
They made it 36 of 40 times, and that's how they're playing football. And they're going to have to change the rules. The NFL is going to have to stop that because nobody wants to watch that. It's not a rugby scrum. Like, come on, to get 2 yards, make it more artistic than that. The XFL has implemented 4th and 15 instead of an onside kick. They've got some rule changes where you can get a 2-point conversion, a 3-point conversion. I think the NFL is going to end up trying to steal some of this stuff as the game has to change. They can't hang on to the conservative way it's been all the time. They're going to copycat some of this stuff.
How many years have you been saying, why are we making the kickers even more important in the NFL? Kickers not that important in the XFL. The 4th and 15 onside thing provided loads of excitement. There was a miraculous comeback in that San Antonio St. Louis game. It was a crazy good atmosphere. You had A.J. McCarron, who was looking terrible until the final 90 seconds of that game, and you had a 12-point comeback. A team blew a 12-point lead with 90 seconds left. It was electric. It's been very compelling.
Josh Gordon's running around out there, but I don't. You are enjoying this part of it, and
Eric King is changing games.
Is Josh Gordon doing anything, or is he just running around out there?
No, he caught a touchdown.
Caught a touchdown. Had like
just wanted to clarify.
70 yards in receiving.
Luis Perez had a day, huh?
Yeah, he's holding off Brett Hundley over there, and he's throwing to the likes of Geronimo Allison and Martavius Bryant.
I don't think we can skip past, though, that this weekend, Billy wrote off Vin Diesel with the NBA All-Star game, but sides with The Rock in terms of entertainment in the XFL. No. You have stated your position.
No, you're misrepresenting me. As per usual.
How have I misrepresented you?
I just said that even Vin Diesel couldn't save how long the All-Star Weekend was taking.
Billy, that's the greatest
I
insult
also said
I've
The Rock
ever.
was a little much.
I have heard you utter no greater insult that I can imagine than not even Vin Diesel could lure me in.
But that's not a shot at Vin Diesel. Vin can only do what Vin does, Dan. Vin can't save everything.
My point is that you were more entertained by The Rock's product than Vin Diesel's product.
I didn't actually watch the XFL, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. I found it hard to find. Like, I knew that it was at 3 o'clock on Saturday, and then on Sunday I was, like, up and early. I was like, oh, my God, like, it's 11. Wouldn't it be great if an XFL game was going on right now? And then I saw it didn't start till, like, 2 or 3. And then the next one had, like, this big gap at 8, and I was like, eh. And then other things were happening in my life, and that was that.
Well, this is what happens with fatherhood and sports fandom, though. And Billy's talking about something, Stugotz, that has to be happening all over.
Also, if I may, just Xfinity, give me an XFL tab when I hit the letter C and my little sports thing pops up on the side that I could see the schedule, because only the NFL was there and I couldn't even find the XFL. I had to talk into my remote. Imagine, Dan, how barbaric that is. I have to now talk into my remote because I can't just put the letter C that then has the screen come up that tells me all of the sports games of the day. I had to actually say XFL into my remote, and then there was all these things and I couldn't figure out what to... YouTube clips of what happened the day before. I don't need that. Xfinity, get better. You know what I mean?
Stugotz, there's a content explosion, and everyone is connected to a device, and all of our habits are changing, and everyone's pulling at new dads saying over here, and Mike saying, I got time for the XFL, and I got time for UM men's and women's basketball. I do not have time for the Miami Heat.
Bandwidth. Yeah, I'm prioritizing.
Right, as you should.
The XFL was a superior product over the NBA All-Star Game, and I know you guys think that I'm doing a thing, but as someone that watched every game,
no, Mike likes
the product
it. He does.
is good. It was good 3 years ago. It seems to be even better now. I like that they didn't rush it because they could have went to market last year. They didn't. You get to see what dopes they are in the instant replay booth because Dean Blandino.
That's definitely changing.
Dude, Blandino had one of the worst calls I've ever seen.
I believe that the NFL, as soon as is humanly possible to vote on these things in a conservative government that has a bunch of rich guys that can't agree on anything, they're going to figure out a better replay system.
They won't do that. They won't do that because if you've ever watched the NFL and said, how would they come up with this call? Dean Blandino showed you exactly how dumb someone can be looking at a replay, and he's one of the better ones, and I think he'd be the first to admit that he totally botched that call. They turned a pick into a touchdown. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
My point is they're going to figure out the technology and they're just going to go to a command center because it doesn't make sense. Even in games this important, where every yard counts, it doesn't make sense to have it take so much time all the time.
Well, do me a favor, guys, because I always sound like this XFL propagandist, which I am because I genuinely like it. But that's also because we're having the same goddamn conversation every time we try to talk about the XFL, which is me, someone who's actually watching it, telling you that it's good, and everyone else who's not watching it telling me it's bad. Please do me a favor.
It's because they failed twice, Mike. It's because people aren't giving it.
They didn't fail the second time. They didn't fail the second time.
It's because whether it's marketed as something different or not, this is their third crack at something, and that brand name has two things on it that you're here to replace the NFL, or you're here to take up the pocket of obvious need when the NFL goes away of people need things on the weekends, and twice they haven't achieved what The Rock is now trying to achieve.
Vince McMahon knew that there was more money in filing for bankruptcy because of the pandemic, and that's what happened to XFL 2.0, because XFL 2.0 was a successful venture. They were talking about it. It was putting up good numbers. The investment in taking a low money offer from its television partners was working out because they were outpacing legacy leagues. 3.0, hopefully we don't have another pandemic to ruin it, but it's a great product.
It will succeed.
Well, for lots of reasons, not just
when you say a
hopefully.
great product, it's
great.
just football.
No, but it's...
I mean, the stadiums are empty.
At a time when there's no football.
I watched like 10 minutes with Mike on Saturday, and it was like a couple wacky turnovers. Like, it didn't jump off as like, this is high-level football. It's football.
Yeah, but you didn't watch the finish of that game because the finish was electric in that game. The finish, there was one
few
bad
wacky
XFL.
turnovers.
There was one bad.
Stugotz,
there was
why are you
maybe
pointing?
one mediocre XFL
Stugotz
game.
is pointing at
Well, because Mike is always defending the XFL. Mike just likes football.
But Mike,
like he's
I love
gambling.
football. This
He
is
loves
quality.
football, and it gives him football at a time of the year where he doesn't normally get football.
I don't like a lot of
I
spring
don't care
football.
about it. I tried to get into it. Year one was terrible. Year two, slightly better. and I can't get into year 3. Like
Okay.
bandwidth for me. You got to pick
Version.
and choose these days. I
Yeah,
mean,
version 2 was good, and version 1, I like version 1, but version 1 had a ton of failings because the audio wasn't working, and anytime you try to create content with audio not working, it's usually an L right off the bat. Who does that?
You don't have to sell us on the XFL. It will succeed just because everybody needs live sports and because they will be an option between college football and pro football. It will succeed because all it has to do is provide programming on Saturdays, and it will do that.
Yeah, the attendance numbers I think were slightly down from 2.0, but that's because Seattle and St. Louis weren't playing home games, and those were the 2 best attended teams of 2.0. So
were the ratings up?
I don't know what the ratings are going to say. I would say that they're down going up against All-Star Weekend, but
this is a product of the times. It's not, your product has to be better because you have too many competitors in this space trying to fight for dollars as everyone wants the live sports dollar. You mentioned McMahon. WWE is going to sell for $9 billion.
he's asking for $9 billion. That's
$9
crazy.
billion
That's according to Forbes.
because he can just create content where a lot of people gather on a couple of nights, and it
Creates live content. Live
Correct.
content is what gets you.
that is correct. Live content is difficult to do, as
And they have loads of experience doing it, and they have a big audience, a big live audience, which is very coveted. Is the WWE worth 3 combined sports franchise? Maybe, when you consider the Saudi deal that they have.
But the point of it is everyone's fighting for these dollars, and more people are going to run into this space. And Vin Diesel ran into the NBA space, and The Rock ran into the XFL space. And The Rock is a conqueror, man. I do not understand how he's got the Kevin Hart grind. I don't understand how he doesn't stop being hungry. These projects, these things he takes on must be totally consuming. These building out of teams that he has to fund leagues, to buy.
Pays well, Dan.
I sure it pays well, but Stugotz, at every angle, the man is working. I can't imagine. I told you that I tried to talk to him about something that I needed to do with him in like 2021, and his schedule didn't free up until like the beginning of 2023.
I don't want to be this guy with The Rock, but I saw this on social over the weekend. Like, a lot of work he's been doing. What's the last good movie he was in?
Oh,
DC
man.
Defenders, Seattle Sea Dragons. That was the last good thing that he
It's a
did.
great game.
It was a fantastic game.
Yeah.
Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator for the DC Defenders, was all over Ben DiNucci, who can't read a cover 2 to save his life.
Put it on the poll,
That's why he's
please.
in the XFL.
Put it on the poll at Le Batard
It's a hell of
Show.
a chess match between Ron Zook and Greg Williams.
Zook.
Yeah, he said DC for Seattle. Jim
Okay.
Haslett has a very good staff. June
Hazlitt?
Hazlitt?
June
Yeah.
Jones?
June Jones is the
Do
OC.
me
Ron
a
Zook is the
favor.
DC.
Go sit in the penalty box for
Whoa,
2
whoa,
minutes.
whoa.
Just sit in the penalty box for 2 minutes. Just go out there.
Well,
Get to the
sorry
good
for
stuff. I
informing me.
mean,
I know.
But just mention
Hazlitt.
my
I
name.
want you if for Ron Zook, just for Ron Zook. Once
it's a great hire.
Oh,
not-
Ron Zook
no,
had
that's
no.
not fair.
Ron Zook had no
Mike-
answers for
Mike,
Derek King.
Chris Cody wanted
Derek King threw for
Chris
7
Cody
yards.
was
yeah, but he
about
came in as a running
Mike
throw. He's a
Ryan.
backup.
Mike Ryan. Chris Cody was about to lob a bomb into the universe where he criticized The Rock, and you did not let him because you needed to talk about
Very
Ron
dangerous.
Zook.
Just asking the
Good,
question.
No one's watching it.
Go
okay?
sit in the penalty
I'm more
box.
talking about his movies, honestly. Like, that's just like, when's the last good movie
It's
he made? I
Chris-
know Billy's gonna say, Fast 5 and all that stuff.
No, I liked Red Notice.